Good morning and welcome to another day in Kuala Lumpur. I'm outside of my hostel a bit early again this morning. It's about 7:30 and I'm heading to a special place in Kuala Lumpur. It's called the Thean Hou Temple. And the reason I'm going to this temple is that today is also a special day. It is the last day of the Chinese year. So tonight is Chinese New Year's Eve, and tomorrow is the first day of the Chinese New Year. I don't know exactly where to go in Kuala Lumpur to see some of the Chinese New Year celebrations, but I thought the Thean Hou Temple would be a good place to start. It's quite a large and well-known temple in Kuala Lumpur, and I imagine it's been beautifully decorated for the New Year celebrations. So I'm going to go check it out. It's a good place to start, I think. I'm sure there's a much easier and better way to get there, but I'm going to take the MRT, once again, my favorite thing, to the Bangsar station, and from there it's a 1.6 kilometer walk to the temple. And the temple is also up on a hill, so it's going to be a bit of an uphill climb to get there. So I might end up being a bit sweaty by the time I get there. But anyway, back into the MRT. At Bangsar station, and I didn't even need hyperspeed or warp speed to get here. Just got here just like that. And from here I can actually see Thean Hou Temple. It's pretty small perhaps in the frame, but see if you can make it out. It's just over here, and we've got the sun rising over the hill just to the left. But just because you can see something in Kuala Lumpur doesn't mean it's easy to get to. But I've got my friend Google Maps with me, and I'm sure we can find our way through these streets to climb up that hill. The first barrier I have to deal with are the railroad tracks, but they kindly put in this pedestrian bridge, and it should get me most of the way across. If not all the way. I'm actually going to have to check Google Maps because there's another pedestrian bridge over here that goes even further. So that might be a better one to take. I'll figure that out. Thean Hou Temple is actually something of a modern temple in Kuala Lumpur. I think it was opened in 1989, which makes it about 30 years old. It's quite a large temple. It has 6 tiers, and it has a bit of a mix of Buddhist, Taoist, and Confucius elements in the architecture, I'm told. It's dedicated to the goddess Thean Hou, and her other name is Matzu, and she is the goddess of the sea, protector of fishermen and sailors. She is the main goddess of the temple. And there are 2 other goddesses installed here. One of them is, I believe, Yin, the goddess of mercy. And the other one, I forget her name, but she's the goddess of the waterfront. So even though we're a fair bit inland here in Kuala Lumpur, this temple is kind of dedicated to the sea, which is interesting. From Google Maps, I couldn't quite figure out which pedestrian bridge was the best one to take. So I picked the first one. Gets me over the railroad tracks up here. You can see the tracks down there. But then it kind of dumps me over here, right beside the railroad tracks, and sort of on the other side of this other set of railroad tracks. But it looks like there's a sidewalk that goes underneath. So I'm Dora the Explorer again, finding all the clues of how to get from A to B. That might have been the Clea Express going to the airport. It's going faster than most other trains I see here. And this is the Bangsar LRT station over here. And these tracks head down towards KL Central in that direction. Behind me are the stairs heading down. Good morning. Success. So this does lead me to a sidewalk that gets me underneath the other railroad tracks. That's funny. There's actually not a lot of headroom here for a tall fellow like me. I've hit my head on a lot of doorways in Asia in my life, but I've never hit my head on a train track before. That would be a new experience. As I'm walking into the sun, heading towards Thean Hou Temple, might be a good time to chat about Chinese New Year a little bit. I've been in Asia a fair amount, so I've picked up a few little tidbits about Chinese New Year here and there, but I'm by no means an expert. Anything Chinese or to do with the Chinese culture or India and the Indian culture, it's too complicated for me to keep straight in my little head. But Chinese New Year always struck me as both a simple holiday and a very complicated one. It's simple to the extent that it's all about people going home to their family, spending time with their family, and having a good meal. That's the heart of the holiday, and to that extent it's very similar to the Western Christmas. An amazing fact about Chinese New Year today is that so many people go home to their families that it has become the largest human migration in human history. I read that anyway. Estimates say that as many as 3 billion people make the trip to go home at this time, and they do it every single year. There's an amazing documentary about this set in China about people going to the train station and trying to get seats on the train to go home for Chinese New Year. I'll try and think of the name of it, and if I think of it, put a link in the description below. I'm slowly making my way to the temple with my good friend Google Maps. Got to this spot, and of course, major construction site, another building going up here. And the next barrier I have to deal with is the Klang River. I have to get across it to get to the temple, and I think this road will take me to some kind of an overpass across the river. I think the overpass is for cars, but maybe a poor pedestrian like me can find my way. This sign is apologizing for the inconvenience and the danger, and yeah, they're not kidding. You don't want to fall down that hole. And it's a fairly typical walking experience in Kuala Lumpur. I mean, this road, as far as it goes, I mean, this would be the sidewalk. Is, you know, it's the only thing here that you could call a sidewalk, but it's clearly more like an obstacle course. So yeah, Chinese New Year is kind of a simple holiday. Like I said, you go home, stay with your family, have a good meal. They even exchange some gifts. But especially for a foreigner like me, Chinese New Year can also be very complicated. There are so many traditions and rituals and meanings and beliefs. Everything is symbolic of something else. Everything has a meaning. There are a million things you can do that are lucky and will bring you good fortune in the coming year. And there's a million other things that are unlucky. So you have to be really careful what you do. One tradition I know about is that as you approach Chinese New Year, you're supposed to clean your house and get everything in order. Spick and span, top to bottom, get it really clean. But you can't clean your house on Chinese New Year's Day, because if you sweep and dust on that day, you are sweeping out all of your good luck for the coming year. So you see what I mean about it being complicated. You should clean on the day before, but you can't clean on the day of. You got to keep that straight if you want good luck and lots of fortune in the coming year. Step by step, getting me closer to the temple, and I've reached the highway, or the road that goes over the Klang River, and it looks like there's a sidewalk on the side there, which is good news. I just have to get across this first. Got traffic whipping at me from two directions. In both directions it's coming around a corner, so you have to be pretty careful. It comes at you faster than you think. Alright, now the second half. This gateway, by the way, is sort of the entrance into Little India, and I imagine I will go there someday. I don't know anything about Little India, to be honest. It's near KL Central, and I think the area is also known as Brickfields, but I've spent very little time there and I've done almost no exploring, so that should be interesting. Chinese New Year can be an exciting time for children, because there's another tradition that you give red envelopes filled with money to other people. And parents usually give them to their children, or grandparents to grandchildren. Married couples will give them to unmarried people that they know. If you work for a Chinese company, quite often the boss of the company will give red envelopes to their employees with a bonus inside. And I believe these are called Hung Bao or something like that. So it's always great fun to get a Hung Bao and see how much money you got. But as is typical, you can't give just any amount of money. Some very careful calculation has to go into how much money you put into the envelope. Odd numbers are bad, they're unlucky. So you should try to give an amount that is an even number. But then a whole other bunch of rules filter in as well. So you have to be careful. For example, 4 is an even number, but 4 is a very unlucky number because the Chinese word for 4 sounds like the word for death. So you can't give 400 of something. That would be a very bad Hung Bao. So you got to be careful of what you do. My bridge took me safely over the Klang River. I wonder if the River of Life project is ever going to reach this far and they're going to rejuvenate this whole area. That would be quite nice. I've tried walking along the Klang River from time to time, and it's always interesting. I mean, it's a real adventure. Just as you can see here, it's all kind of a construction site, but it's not exactly what you'd think of as a riverside park. At least not yet. Maybe that will be developed in the future. This bridge is also getting me over this highway system. That's a good thing, because without it, I don't think you're going to catch me running across this. It's even for me, that would be too much. Down in that direction, I think, is the Garden Hotel, and my favorite place now, the Mega Mall. Love the Mega Mall. I've reached another intersection and decision point, and if Google Maps is to be believed, I have to go around this way, down 2 streets, turn right, and then I start climbing up to Thean Hou Temple, which is up there somewhere. You can't see it anymore, but it's up there. This idea of words sounding like other words in Chinese, which makes them lucky or unlucky, or objects looking like other objects, which makes them lucky or unlucky, it's a big part of Chinese in general, the Chinese culture, and a big part of Chinese New Year. For example, I read that the word for fish in Chinese sounds a lot like the word for profit. Again, that's about money and good fortune and good luck. So the Chinese New Year dinner, they often have a whole fish as part of the meal, because if you eat the whole fish, you will get profit and good fortune in the year to come. Another popular snack are the little dumplings, jiaozi or something like that. And they're good for Chinese New Year as well, because the shape of them looks like a gold ingot from China. So again, if you have jiaozi for your Chinese, as part of your Chinese New Year meal, you might get lots and lots of gold in the year to come. So it's an important time of the year. Do something right, you become rich. Do it something wrong, and you could have a very bad year. You got to be careful. Well, Doug the pedestrian has reached another difficult thing to cross. There are red lights everywhere, nothing to indicate anything for pedestrians, so you just walk across and see what happens. There's no sidewalk at all on this side, and I see a little bit of a sidewalk over there, so that's where we're going to go. And this appears to be a good choice, because there's a sign here for the temple. And there you can see how it's written in English, Thean Hou Temple, or Thean Hou Temple. I am 1000% sure that I'm pronouncing it horribly, but I'm doing my best. And you get to share your sidewalk with the local trees and the local trucks. Good morning. And the local motorcycles and the local poles. And this is what I was talking about, the hill. I believe this road leads up to the temple, and you can see it's starting to climb steeply. I'm already sweating quite a bit. I'll be sweating a lot more by the time I get up there. My favorite story to do with Chinese New Year is all about the beast. The beast is Nian, and this beast, I think, lives in the mountains. And once a year, Nian comes down out of the mountains and would go to the villages and attack them. And he really liked to eat children. He was such a terrible monster. He would eat entire children in one bite, just eat them up. And the villagers were very afraid of Nian, of course, and would pray and hide from him when he comes out. But then at one point in history, they realized Nian was afraid of 3 things. He was afraid of fire, loud noises, and the color red. I like that story because it's a great story, but also because it explains so many of the traditions around Chinese New Year. The color red, for example, you see everywhere. People will get their hair cut at Chinese New Year and buy new clothes, and they often get a bright red outfit. When they go to the temple, they will wear red clothing. A lot of the decorations, like the lanterns, are all in red, of course. And you'll often see in Chinese homes, they put red banners around the door on both sides, across the top, and a red symbol in the middle. And this red color scares away Nian, and the writings bring good fortune for the year. And if you think about the story of Nian, it also explains a very big part of the Chinese New Year tradition: firecrackers. Think about it. Nian is afraid of fire, loud noises, and the color red. So you light a whole bunch of red firecrackers, and the loud noise and the fire and the smoke scares Nian away, and he doesn't eat your children. So that's a pretty good deal. You get to have fun with firecrackers, and your children don't get eaten by a Nian. We've almost arrived at the Thean Hou Temple. It's just up the road here. It's a wonderful walk to get up here. Very nice, very quiet, very green, lots of birds, and a little bit cool, you know, since it's still early in the morning. So that's the best time to go. Before we get to the temple, there's just one other thing that Chinese New Year makes me think about, and that's about calendars. I mean, it's kind of funny that we call it Chinese New Year, because from the Chinese point of view, it's just New Year. I mean, they wouldn't call it Chinese New Year because for them it is just the New Year. I mean, we don't call ours Canadian New Year. We think of it as the New Year, because it's based on the calendar we use. And I've heard people say some dumb things in the past, that how dumb it is, you know, that Chinese New Year changes every year. It happens on a different day. Like this year, you know, it's on February 5th, Chinese New Year. Next year, it will be on a different day. But these people aren't thinking clearly, because in the Chinese calendar, it's not changing. It happens on the same day every year, based on their own calendar. It only changes because you're comparing the Chinese calendar to our calendar, the Gregorian calendar that we use. The Chinese calendar is interesting because it's basically a lunar calendar, of course. It's based on the movements of the moon. But it also has solar elements based on the sun. It's very, very technical, and I don't understand any of that. But I guess it's kind of a luna-solar month. It's a combination of the two. But basically, it's based on the lunar cycles. Anytime you're talking about calendars and how we deal with time, it gets really complicated, so I could be getting all of this wrong. But as far as I understand things, the Chinese calendar, as I said, it's kind of a lunar calendar based on the movement of the moon. Each month begins on the new moon and goes until the last day of the moon cycle, when the new moon begins again. And you end up with 12 months, and the months are either 29 or 30 days long. They alternate, 29, 30, 29, 30. And because of that, you don't actually end up with 365 days. So the calendar starts to drift out of sync with the universe, basically, with the solar system. So every 3 or maybe 4 years, they have to stick in an extra month. So every 3rd or 4th year, you have a year that has 13 months, and that extra month deals with all that time that has been lost. It's kind of like having, you know, a watch that is not keeping perfect time. You know, it's either a bit too slow or too fast. And it works, you know, it basically tells you what time it is, but every once in a while, you have to adjust it and bring it back into sync with time if it's too slow or too fast. And all calendars are like that. The Gregorian calendar, of course, we have the leap year. And in every leap year, we add an extra day to February. And that takes our calendar and syncs it back up again. And the Chinese calendar does the same thing, they just do it in a different way. All very interesting stuff, I think. Starting to see some red lanterns there, scaring away the beast Nian. And just over here, we're starting to see a bit of the temple. Almost there. A while back, I went on a cycling trip to Ethiopia, and one of the surprising things I learned when I was there is that they also have their own calendar, and it is based on a constant 13-month year. And that's how they deal with, syncing up their system to the actual movement of the sun and the earth and the moon. And their tourism slogan is actually 13 months of sunshine. And one more interesting and fun aspect to the Chinese calendar and Chinese New Year is that they have the 12 zodiac animals. Every year has its own animal. And as you might know, 2018 was the year of the dog. So today is the last day of the year of the dog, and tomorrow, Chinese New Year, begins the year of the pig. And every person has their own zodiac animal based on the year that they were born. I was born in 1963, and when I first went to Taiwan, I learned that that made me a rabbit. When I first learned that I was a rabbit, I wasn't quite sure what to think about that. I mean, who really wants to be a rabbit? Wouldn't you rather be something exciting like a tiger or a dragon or a lion, something cool and powerful? But the animal zodiac doesn't really work that way. Every animal has some fairly good points and then some negative traits. Just this morning I did some reading on one website about what it means to be born in the year of the rabbit. And so much of it applied to me. I was really quite surprised. It said that if you were born in the year of the rabbit, you're quiet and polite, and that's kind of me. You're intelligent and chic, and I don't think I'm chic in any way. It also said that you are very detail-oriented and very responsible, and that's kind of me as well. But where they got it wrong was they said that being detail-oriented and working hard means great success in career. And that has never been me. I work very hard and I'm very responsible and take care of all the details, but somebody else always makes all the money. I don't make the money, so I'm definitely not a success. I'm doing something wrong. And speaking of money, since we're coming up on the year of the pig, according to what I read, people born in the year of the pig are logical, very good at solving problems. They're not great communicators, but they're kind, and they're very good at caring for their family. And most people born in the year of the pig are wealthy. So there you go. It's good to be a pig. Maybe also good to be a rabbit, but in a different way. And here we are, Thean Hou Temple. The bonus question for the last video was about my physical fitness. I asked you, how many push-ups could I do on my first attempt? The answer is very embarrassing. Just one. I could only do one push-up, then my arms started shaking and I just collapsed to the ground. In my defense, my arms are very long, My body is very long, I'm quite tall, and I weigh something like 90 kilograms, about 200 pounds. So push-ups are very difficult for me to do. Even so, that's embarrassing. It's now 3 or 4 days later, I guess, and I've been doing push-ups every day, and I can now do 6 push-ups. So that's a little bit better. Still embarrassing. We'll see just how high I can get that number. The bonus question for this video is about the zodiac animals. Out of the 12 zodiac animals, which one comes first? And how did that animal become number 1? Put your answer in the comments below. Answer at the end of the next video. I also learned that the rabbit, me, is associated with the moon. As we always in the West think that there's the man on the moon, in Chinese culture they believe there is a rabbit on the moon. And I think there's a big Chinese New Year story about this rabbit and what he's doing up there. It might actually have to do with a different holiday. Yeah, I think it's a different holiday, but I can't remember which one. But anyway, there's a rabbit on the moon. Travel tip 19 is to do a Google search for national holidays before you go on your trip. This sounds like common sense, but it's something that a lot of people forget to do, and it's easy to understand why. Getting ready for a trip and planning it is pretty complicated, and you can just get so involved in vaccinations, visas, booking your flight, packing, buying things that you completely forget about holidays. And holidays are important because on a big national holiday, government offices, banks, and other important places are closed. And what if you're in this other country, your visa is expiring and you want to extend it, but it's a holiday? Immigration office is closed. What if you decide you want to fly out of that country and you need to because your visa is expired, but surprise, it's a big holiday. All the flights are booked. The ones that you can get are 3 or 4 times as expensive, and you could have avoided all these problems if you took 5 minutes earlier and just checked on the dates for all the national holidays in the country or countries that you're going to. And it might come as a bit of a surprise, but countries like Indonesia and Malaysia and others have a lot of national holidays. You'd be surprised, and it's very easy to get caught by them. It's happened to me lots of times. I've gone to an immigration office to extend my visa. I've got all my documents ready. I'm fully prepared. I get there, and the office is closed. Don't let this happen to you. Check holidays before you go, and even make a list. Write them down and store them on your phone so you don't forget.